we have a little bit to share today, but I wanted to just first say thank you for watching. Being with the Benhams is something that's been in our heart for a while, and it's a little bit nerve-wracking sometimes, but also really exciting for us to kind of step into it. And I think it's because kind of what we just went through, right? We started to record a video for something completely different.
Yes.
And it turned into, I don't know, almost an hour's worth of untangling. So why don't you share a little bit about what that untangling looked like?
So yeah, we were about to do the video. We heard commotion out in the kitchen, and it turned out our older two boys were arguing over who was going to get to have the last Jell-O.
Jell-O.
Jell-O. It's a killer, people. Mm-hmm. You should just not buy it.
What flavor was it?
It was orange.
It's not this color.
But, and so I said, hey, why don't we find a solution, like sharing it, or like, what are some other solutions that we can come up with? Well, what we came to find out was the Jell-O was kind of a representation of things that had happened throughout the morning or over the last couple of days, that the boys had kind of some unresolved like feelings towards each other. And so the Jell-O was like this thing outside of them.
Right. It was like a domino. It was like...
Well, it was what they were both trying to use to communicate how mad they were at the other person.
Right. And just for context, this was between Jackson. Jackson's 10 and a half. Noah's almost 8. And these two boys, they absolutely adore each other. Our sons, they love each other immensely. Yeah. And as a result, like, the love meter and the anger meter sometimes can be like directly proportional to one another. Yeah. So in this case, we've got like this Jell-O argument, and we're going out there just thinking that we're gonna solve this thing pretty quick. It's about Jell-O. What's the big deal? Let's give the babysitter kind of like a release or a relief. But we found out it was way deeper than that, and the depths of it. First, I'll just take responsibility. They first started with me just like flying off the handle because I was trying to solve the problem with Noah, and Noah is very emotional. He feels very deeply, and as a result, in trying to solve the problem, I got a, those little squeeze, like apple squeeze packets, tossed. It wasn't at me, but he tossed it at a glass desk that we had, which naturally triggered me to be like, what are you doing? Right? In front of everyone. And then they were immediately, like, this little thing about Jell-O became way bigger. And how did we fix that one?
Yes. So we had to, so that's kind of something that we feel like we're working on as a family. So everybody gets triggered, right, differently. And, why do we get triggered? Why do those things happen? And really, like, it can set everybody up to be frustrated with each other. Because I'm sitting there trying to navigate things. Scott comes out, focuses on the Jell-O. Then they decide they can't work out the Jell-O because, of course, they're not realizing that they're both holding, like, a big pot of anger towards each other.
Well, we all... Like, Kaylin, to her credit, is like, she goes in thinking this isn't about Jell-O, and I'm going in there like, let's figure this Jell-O thing out, right? I mean, and the boys are the same way. The boys are like, it's about Jell-O, and he saw it, and I got it, and I want to give it to him. So we start to solve the Jell-O thing, and oftentimes it's like one or two questions. What got to Noah? There was something that all of a sudden we asked him, like, is this really about Jell-O? And he just turns into a little mini puddle.
Well, you took Noah out into the garage. So were you having that conversation?
No, I mean like when he was at the countertop.
Oh, well,
and
he
started
was
to cry.
upset because Jackson was recognizing that he hadn't communicated in the past, like, things he was upset for Noah. And so he decided that he was going to open the Jell-O and start eating the Jell-O in front of Noah. So they hadn't come up with a resolution. And Jackson has this idea that, hey, if I eat the Jell-O in front of him, he will get really upset, and I'll be able to see how upset I get when Noah does this kind of stuff to me.
Yeah, this
So it was a
interesting.
very like, okay, that's interesting.
But we uncovered that. You uncovered, like, so we kind of did a divide and conquer. So Kaylin took Jackson, I took Noah. And did you uncover that with Jackson?
Jackson uncovered that. So he's brilliant. I mean, all our kids are brilliant in their own ways, but Jackson, I just said, listen, I need you, like, that was not a Jackson move, what you just did. And so I need you to go figure out where Jackson is, like what was going on in you, and then come back and let's talk about it. So he went out on the trampoline for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then he came back in, and he started playing a game with Violet, and I said, whoa, we've got to fix things before you just kind of pretend like nothing happened. And he came over and he said, well, I think I ate the Jell-O because I realized I was really upset with Noah for some other things that had happened. And in the past, when Noah's upset with me, he will do something right in front of me to make me know how upset he is.
Wow.
And he said, so I was trying to do that with the Jell-O to see how it felt. And I was like, wow. So how did that work?
Yeah.
And so we kind of talked about, like, well, I said, well, what is it that you think you need to talk to Noah about? And he said, well, I don't think he really, like, when I tell him I'm feeling upset, he doesn't stop doing what he's doing. And I said, so he's not really respecting your limit. If you put a limit up, he's not really honoring your limit. Well, yeah. Okay. So we had kind of gotten to that place where Jackson was like, I realized I shouldn't have opened the Jell-O and eaten it in front of him. And it came out like he actually was going to share the Jell-O with Noah, but Noah's strong reaction about the Jell-O shut Jackson down to where then he no longer wanted to share the Jell-O, and then that's when the rest ensued.
Right. And then for me, like, I had to pursue Noah twice in order to get him to uncover. The first time, I was met with a wall of fire, just anger. He didn't want anything to do with me. Apparently, I was the reason why this whole thing was going down. And normally, guys, I would engage in that and try to, like, win, right? But I've learned over trial and error that there is no win. And Kaylin has to remind me of this all the time, right? We're not perfect. We don't get this thing right every single time. But, like, that his faculty shut down when he's that angry. So I pursued him a second time after about 5 minutes in the garage. And the first thing he said, Daddy, I don't want to fix this. Stop trying to fix it. Right. So it just goes into all these different directions in which I was trying to, like, enter in and to get Noah excited about fixing it. And he wanted to talk about why that's not really the enemy, right? God wouldn't do something like this, right? So we're talking about faith, and then we're talking about the enemy, and then we're talking about really what mattered. And it came down to this thing that he got jumped on in the trampoline 3 days ago or a week ago, and that's what was really hurting him. And I think it's such a good lesson for us to recognize, because, guys, I jump in thinking it's about the Jell-O, but it's not about the Jell-O. It was about the hurt that ensued days ago. And I read a book a while ago. I'm going to completely botch the title, so I won't even try. But the author describes, like, children, kind of like barbecue, like uncooked barbecue chicken. On the outside, everything looks like it's done, but when you cut into the inside, it's still mushy and uncooked, right? And that's kind of how these situations play themselves out, aren't they?
Well, that's a lot of how, like, and Noah specifically plays himself out. Like, he plays himself out like he's all done and got it figured out. But the truth is that kid, like, he's got such a soft heart, and it's so fragile that, like, specifically with his brother, he needs to know, I'm good with you. You're going to protect me. We're friends, we're buddies, like, you love me. He needs that connection. He needs to know that connection is there. And if it gets damaged, until it gets repaired, he's walking around with like a kind of a wounded little heart. And so that's
without
something,
letting anybody know about
without even himself really knowing
Yeah.
about it until he slows down and you kind of give him space. But he has to be willing to go into that space, and that's kind of hard. And sometimes you don't even know that space is there until there is a big blow up and you're like, wait a minute, this seems way disproportionate to what's actually going on. So there must be something bigger going on. And so that's part of just who we are as a family, and something that we value is really giving our kids and us a voice to express and use our words to say, it really hurt my feelings when you did this, or it really angered me. And sometimes the kids will say exactly what they wanted to do. Like, I wanted to punch you. I wanted to, I just wanted to scream, whatever it is.
Sometimes the words are a little bit more colorful than that.
Well, right. But, it can feel like, I think as parents, it can feel like all is lost in that moment. Like, what the heck is going on? And yet, if we can keep ourselves calm, and that's kind of part of like what we learn, and what we might even get frustrated with each other about is like, hey, you lost your cool, and that's not really like modeling that we can bring in a calm, like, hey, this is no big deal, this is just something we have to talk through.
Right.
And
that can be tough, man, because it's like, just like you just said, Noah didn't recognize what he was feeling, but it was in there. So you can imagine this like thing, like there's something in there and then it spills out once somebody hits him, right? Like, we could be the same way, right? Like, we got stuff going on. Like, we're trying to have a successful marriage and, help the kids understand more about who they are and build a business, so there's stuff that like is there, and it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of focus.
Well, you have to kind of know, and this is where we are too, is just really, the discouragement or fears or what have you, like our broken places, not broken, but like our mushy hurt places, might cause, or, might be like underneath the surface, and then one thing happens and it's like, bah, like there's a big outburst. And really, if you're just able to kind of keep that focus on, okay, where are we going? Who are we? What are we doing? Then you realize, okay, those feelings are going to come and go. They might cycle through. Oh, wow, you just had a big outburst. Like, what's actually going on? Oh, well, I'm afraid. Well, why are you afraid? Well, because da 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 da. But if you don't express it, it just stays in you, trapped and getting like poked
Totally
by other things.
Totally. And this is one 45-minute example of what happens, so
it took, like, let's just say that it took like 45 minutes of a day where we have somebody here like watching the kids, and we're supposed to be working.
Right.
And because this is so important to us, we recognize like, okay, we have to put our focus here now. But then that's like 45 minutes. Now we're like, oh, okay. Now we have to like refocus ourselves to get motivated and mindset back into, okay, what are the things that we were actually going to get done today?
Right.
And that's part of our life, is because we homeschool, because we all work from home, it's a lot of times like some relational dynamic needs to be addressed, and it kind of throws things off.
Well, it's going to come down to relational dynamics and identity. We always have to be reminding not only ourselves, but ourselves, right? This is not just about the kids, but we remind the kids who they are. And then, guys, it's taken a while. Like it takes, they don't always accept who they are right away. But once they do, it makes those 45-minute times more productive, right? Because I'll just say to Noah, like God's given you the superpower of love, man. Like you are a big lover and you're not doing that right now. And then just letting that marinate. And I think, that's part of the work. That's because these things like our heart is to come on here and to share like what being with the Benhams is. Not that we have it all figured out, but that in the process, which is we're in the process of figuring it out, you figure it out. Does that that makes sense?
Yeah.
So if you want to help continue to figure it out, just, let us know in the comments below, like what sort of things do you guys deal with? Like what sort of dynamics or challenges that you deal with as parents or as married couple. And this is the journey that we're on, and we're inviting you along with it. So I hope you'll join us. Let us know how we can serve you, and we'll see you next time.